The structural integrity of American aerial dominance in the Middle East has reached a critical inflection point. As of April 11, 2026, a series of rigorous intelligence reports and leaked Department of Defense data, first corroborated by CBS News, confirm that the United States has lost a total of 24 MQ-9 Reaper unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, since the commencement of Operation Epic Fury, the joint U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iranian military infrastructure that began on February 28, 2026. The attrition rate has accelerated at an alarming velocity. While 11 units were confirmed lost by March 9th, an additional 8 drones were downed in the first 9 days of April alone. Financial estimates place the direct hardware loss at approximately $720 million, assuming a conservative flyaway unit cost of $30 million per aircraft. However, when factoring in specialized intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, ISR suites, including the Multispectral Targeting System, MTSB, and Link's multi-mode synthetic aperture radar, the total strategic loss, inclusive of ground control stations and satellite bandwidth allocation, likely exceeds $1.2 billion. The MQ-9 Reaper, developed by General Atomics Aeronautical Systems, has served as the workhorse of the American surveillance state for over 2 decades. Designed as a significant upgrade to the MQ-1 Predator, the Reaper features a 950-shaft horsepower turboprop engine, allowing it to carry 15 times more ordnance and cruise at 3 times the speed of its predecessor. With a service ceiling of 15,000 meters, approximately 50,000 feet, and a 24 to 27-hour endurance window, it was envisioned as a persistent, unblinking eye over the battlefield. However, the recent theater of operations has proved unforgiving. Losses in early April were heavily concentrated around high-value targets in Shiraz, Isfahan, and the strategic island of Kish in the Persian Gulf. In these sectors, the U.S. has deployed Reapers to identify and strike Iranian ballistic missile launchers, hardened airfields, and mobile air defense systems. Iranian state media, backed by footage released by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has showcased wreckage in Bandar Abbas and Hormozgan province, specifically identifying fragments of the Reaper's electro-optical pods and AGM-114 Hellfire missile rails. One particularly harrowing sequence occurred during Operation Dude 44 on April 3, 2026. Following the downing of a manned F-15E Strike Eagle over Iranian territory, a massive combat search and rescue CSAR operation was launched. During the frantic 48-hour window to recover 2 downed airmen, the U.S. reportedly lost 2 MQ-9s that were providing top cover and target acquisition for the rescue teams. This brings the total loss to nearly 8% of the entire U.S. Air Force MQ-9 inventory in just 6 weeks of active kinetic engagement. The expanded losses reflect the increasing difficulty of sustaining ISR operations inside heavily contested Iranian airspace, noted an anonymous senior defense official. The era of the permissive environment is over. From the perspective of a senior strategic realist, the loss of 24 MQ-9 Reapers is not merely a logistical setback or a budgetary line item. It is a profound signal of the democratization of anti-access area denial, A2AD capabilities. For 30 years, the United States projected power through a technological monopoly of the skies. We operated under the assumption that our assets were untouchable by non-peer or regional adversaries. Iran has systematically dismantled that assumption. The fundamental law of realism in warfare is the cost-imposition ratio. A single MQ-9 Reaper costs the American taxpayer roughly $30 million. The Iranian 358 missile, or a Majid interceptor, likely costs less than $50,000 to produce. When a $50,000 asset can consistently negate a $30 million asset, the hegemon is faced with a mathematical certainty of defeat through exhaustion. Iran is not attempting to win a traditional air war against the U.S. and Israel. They are conducting a campaign of strategic depletion. By forcing the U.S. to sacrifice nearly 10% of its Reaper fleet in 6 weeks, Tehran is sending a message to Washington's policymakers. Your presence is too expensive to maintain. Behind the curtain, this attrition has forced the Pentagon into a defensive crouch. We are seeing a marked reduction in deep penetration sorties. The U.S. is now shifting toward extreme standoff distances, which naturally degrades the quality of intelligence gathered. When the eye in the sky is forced to blink, the enemy moves with impunity. The MQ-9 was born for the counterinsurgency, COIN, operations of the 2000s, Afghanistan, Iraq, and the tribal areas of Pakistan. In those theaters, the enemy lacked even rudimentary radar. The Reaper is slow, has a large radar cross-section, and possesses limited defensive maneuverability. In a realist framework, we must acknowledge that the Reaper is a transitional technology. It was the bridge between manned flight and the future of autonomous, attritable swarms. However, the U.S. military-industrial complex has clung to these high-value, centralized platforms for too long. The current conflict with Iran is a correction market for military technology. The market is telling us that expensive, slow, and unstealthy platforms are obsolete in the face of modern networked air defenses. The loss of these 24 aircraft will likely accelerate a radical shift in American defense procurement. We are already seeing the emergence of collaborative combat aircraft, CCA, and cheaper solar-powered drones like the K-1000 ULE, which prioritize mass over sophistication. The Pentagon's quiet pivot to Group 1 and Group 2 UAVs, which are treated as munitions rather than aircraft, signals a silent admission. The high-value drone era is over. The future of power projection will rely on swarming logic. If the U.S. had lost 2,400 drones costing $10,000 each, instead of 24 drones costing $30 million each, the strategic impact on American prestige would be zero, while the operational effect on Iran would have been far more devastating. There is also the matter of global perception. Realism dictates that power is a function of perceived capability. When regional actors, from the Houthis in Yemen to the IRGC in Tehran, demonstrate that they can clear the skies of American high-tech assets, the deterrent value of the American flag diminishes globally. We must watch the reactions in the Indo-Pacific. If China observes that the American ISR is fragile in the face of Iranian-tier technology, their confidence in challenging U.S. surveillance in the South China Sea will grow exponentially. The Reaper crisis is not just a Middle Eastern problem, it is a global credibility problem. Finally, there is the risk of technology drift. Every Reaper that falls into Iranian territory provides Tehran, and by extension Moscow and Beijing, with a masterclass in American sensor technology and data link encryption. We are essentially funding the R&D of our adversaries with every shootdown. The recovery of these drones has become a war within a war. The U.S. is now forced to divert strike packages not to hit Iranian launchers, but to destroy the wreckage of its own downed drones to prevent intelligence exploitation. This is the definition of strategic friction. It is the sound of a superpower being slowed down by its own weight. The MQ-9 was built for a world that no longer exists. Attrition is the new arithmetic of war, and right now the math does not favor the status quo. This is Global Report. We will continue to monitor the shifting dynamics of Operation Epic Fury and the evolving landscape of unmanned warfare. In a world of rising powers and asymmetric threats, clarity is the only true defense. Stay informed.